Outspoken with Regina. I'm Dr. Regina Davis-Moss, and today we are taking you inside our 2025 Reproductive Justice Summit, a gathering that brought together more than 150 Black RJ leaders in Washington, D.C. this September for a week of learning, joy, and connection. Our theme this year was Reproductive Justice in Action, Black women leading with joy, policy, and power. And that is exactly what we did together during that summit. The energy was electric, the bonds deep, and the vision for what comes next felt so very clear. For me, one of the most powerful parts of the summit was seeing what happens when Black women are in a space where we can breathe deeply, speak freely, and dream without limits. We created a space where strategy and sisterhood flourished. And let me tell you, it was brilliant, it was bold, and we were fully ourselves. And it reminded me when Black women come together, we are simply unstoppable. This was more than a conference. It was a homecoming, a space of strategy, healing, and joy. As part of this gathering, our partner executive directors sat down with us for one-on-one interviews to share their insights in this moment and in this time, how they are sustaining themselves, and what gives them hope for the work ahead. In this episode, you're going to hear their voices directly. They're unfiltered, they're powerful, and rooted in the daily realities of leading Black reproductive justice organizations. This is the heartbeat of reproductive justice, and these are the women that are leading us forward. As we begin this episode, I want to start where so many of us have been lately, trying to make sense of the moment we're in. A moment that feels unlike what we've ever faced before, but yet one that echoes so many of the struggles our ancestors knew all too well. At the summit, several of our partner executive directors spoke about what it means to live and lead through times like these. Times when white supremacy feels emboldened, democracy feels fragile, and our collective power is being tested in real time. In this first segment, you'll hear from Dázon Dixon Diallo of Sister Love, Janette Robinson Flint of Black Women for Wellness, Cherie Scott of Sister Reach, and Deon Haywood of Women with a Vision.
This is a moment. That's the first thing I need people to understand, is that we're actually in a moment. We're in a moment like no other. We have no real data from history that helps us define where we are right now. I think probably if some of my ancestors from 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, they might say they can recall some moments that were similar, where we might not have had the word fascism for it, but we certainly had the word white supremacy, we have slavery, we had inhumane treatment of others, the othering of people so we could treat them differently and inhumanely. This is where we are now. So what's different, though, is that it's almost as if we are now invitingly complicit. When I say we, I don't mean me, I don't mean our people, I don't mean those of us who are active and out front in the reproductive justice movement or any other human rights or social justice movement. I mean we collectively in this country, the United States. It appears, it is a perception that we are somehow complicit in our own demise as we are destroying democracy, not one day at a time, not 1 month at a time, 1 minute at a time at this point, because we also have this thing called the internet, which creates moments by the second. And it's hard to zero in on exactly what it is, but I can tell you what it is. It is using fear, it is using hate, and it is also using your own insecurities about your own destinies that's allowing others to slide inside those particular DMs and take over our lives in ways that are not fair, are not just, and certainly are not democratic, and at the end of the day, will not stand.
think that there are a lot of truths right now that have shown themselves in history. I think that we have not often enough been taught our history or the lessons of our history. We have not been privy to or know of the sausage making that went on with some of the movements, like with what happened with UNIA-ACL, or what happened with the Black Panther Party, or what happened with the Nation of Islam, or what happened with SCLC. I think those truths and how they made those sausages and how they survived and how they were infiltrated, but how they also came up with their vision for the horizon are truths that we need now, because they had vision and we need to know how to set our vision on the horizon so we too can learn the lessons from the past to move forward into the future.
I believe that if we consider each opportunity as an opportunity to organize, to educate, to mobilize, then we will care less about the moment itself and more about our attention to how we need to move it forward, right? I believe not only at the end of all of this we will win, right? But if we don't have that in our mindset of the ways that we are organizing, if we're not coming from a space of abundance, if we are thinking about this with a defeatist attitude, if we are thinking about this with a pessimistic attitude, then we've already lost, right? So it is imperative for us to know who we are and how we are not only divinely the call to do this work, but that we are the ones that will help to get the work achieved and help us actually get to our win.
This political moment, even though as a people, and when I say a people, Black people in this country, our entire existence has always been policed. We've always been harmed. So in this moment, it's a little different. It feels different from other moments. Yes, our people have been through a lot. But this time, everybody's going to go through a lot. White supremacy, in some ways, I feel like it's getting what it wants. It is the dominant culture. And I wish more people knew what it meant, right? Just to share this quickly, I had a conversation with my father who, growing up, he was, about the time I turned about 12, seriously into religion. And so I had this conversation with him about everything going on. I said, right, which is why I used to argue with you and debate you about religion. Because if all people didn't think religion required them to be homophobic, if it didn't require them to make patriarchy king, then we wouldn't be in this moment. If you could have just, as young people would say, mind your business. If you could have just mind your business and allow queer people, trans people, gay men, lesbians, gender, the whole spectrum of who we are as a community, as a country, if everybody just had an opportunity to be themselves, I really wish people knew that white supremacy really rules their lives in ways that they don't realize. And I feel like that's the work we have to add to RJ now.
Listening to these leaders, I am reminded that clarity is a form of power. When we call this moment what it is, when we name white supremacy, when we recognize fear and disinformation for what they are, we take away some of their control. Each of these voices challenges us to not only see the truth of where we are, but to remember who we come from. Our ancestors faced unimaginable conditions and still imagined freedom. That same spirit is what keeps this movement alive today. The question for us now isn't what moments we are in. It's what are we being called to do inside of it. In our first segment, we focused on naming the moment, understanding the landscape we're in and the forces shaping it. Now, I want to turn to something just as essential, how we stay in this work. How do we remain grounded? How do we remain strategic and whole, even as the world continues to test our resolve? You'll hear again from Dázon and Sharice, whose words remind us that reflection and resistance go hand in hand. We'll also hear from Kenda, founder of Birth in Color, and Dr. Krystal Redman, Executive Director of Spark Reproductive Justice Now, who bring powerful insight into what it means to sustain ourselves and our movement over time. Here's what they had to say.
This is so hard to figure out what it means to stay grounded, right? And being strategic often means that you have to be in collaboration with folks. You have to be able to discern. You have to have some critical analysis about things. You also have to be critical in your decision making. And so I think what it means is that we need to stop and slow down off some of this immediate reaction to things, that we cannot automatically just sound off in a comment section or make someone feel differently about their opinions that they've expressed on the internet, regardless of what platform they're using. What we have to do is stick together. One, staying grounded means we're taking care of each other. We're reminding each other of who we are and how we are and what we are, and that at the end of the day, most importantly, is that we are enough, that we are the ones we've been waiting for, and that we are here for it. So another thing I think in terms of staying grounded, as we embrace that in terms of our own commitment to this work, is that we also remind ourselves of our own humanity, that we're allowed to have bad days, that it's okay to be afraid. It's not okay to be stuck in your fear, that it's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's not okay to cancel each other because we're different. That these are the thoughts that we have to be conscious about and conscientious about, because, I mean, can I be a little cliched and say we still need to learn how to make sure we're treating each other the way we want to be treated? This is a real good way to stay grounded. In terms of being strategic in our, not only our activities or in our movement or in our actions, but also in our own minds, in our own lives, in our own lived experiences, how we use our stories, our personal stories, our professional stories, good and bad, how we use our vulnerabilities, but also how we use our absolute strength and knowledge of power, our own power. Being strategic means we bring all of that in. What it is we need to do, what it is we really need to change, and how we know when we've actually changed it. One of the biggest questions is, what does a world with reproductive justice look like? If we had everything we're fighting for, what does that look like? And then the strategic action says, I have to think future, act in the present, and build it one brick at a time. That's what I think. Staying grounded and being strategic actually are not divergent. They come together. They're rooted together in terms of, they're almost like some of the core ingredients of movement building. So it's important to get both of those things together, and it's important to get them right.
Staying in the fight, you have to think about how we grow as people. We always overcome tragedies, which makes us stronger when it comes to growth. It makes us feel better about ourselves because we've overcame certain situations. And so when you look at it from that point of view, you have no other choice but to say, okay, you get knocked down 10 times, you're gonna get back up each time. And you just think about a different strategy of like, okay, this didn't work, but let me try this. And you keep going, because when you think about our history, our ancestors, and you think about all of the fights that they lost, but also we wouldn't be where we are today without their continuous fighting. We wouldn't have voters' rights. We wouldn't be able to sit in public restrooms and things like that. And so that's how I always look at each approach, is what would they do? And then also, you can knock me down 100 times, but I'm still gonna stand, because I'm still standing at the end of the day. And we all are. And no matter what is actually happening at this pivotal moment, we still are in the fight, and we still can create change.
We are not talking about our divine space in the work, right? As an ordained minister as somebody who uses my belief system in order to advance reproductive and sexual justice for the people that I serve, I am clear of what my calling is, my ministry calling. But I also don't think that there are enough of us that are within this movement, those of us who are believers, those of us who have some space within spirituality, within religion. We are not standing in our bold power and leveraging that right against the narrative around Christian nationalism, white supremacy, theological fascism, right? We are not only the called, but it is imperative that we lead with power, very specifically from our religious understanding. And so until we start centering what is happening right now, until we realize the importance of fighting for religious autonomy, until we recognize that we have strength within this movement and tap into that strength and utilize it, right, to fight back against the powers that be, we will continue to be like 3 steps behind what's happening in the current political discourse. So I speak to the believer, stand up. It's time to stand up.
That we just need to breathe. You know, we're always on the front lines. We're expected to do everything, and action is super important. And also, in order to achieve liberation and freedom, we have to be around to see it one day. So we need to breathe, take care of ourselves, listen to our bodies, truly, truly lean into just like keeping yourself safe. And when I talk about safety, I'm talking about emotional and psychological safety too as well. How do we collectively build communal safety and power in a way that allows us the space to just like truly breathe?
Every time I listen to these leaders, I'm reminded that stillness and strategy can coexist, that rest and resistance are both necessary. To stay grounded is to remember who we are, to honor our humanity, and to move from that place of strength and clarity. And as we stay grounded, we also always need to stay connected. Up next, we're going to hear from more of our partners about the power of community, what it means to hold each other, and what it means to hold each other through the challenge ahead and to keep building together toward freedom. The Black women we've heard so far reminded us how to name the moment and to stay grounded within it. But movements aren't sustained by individuals alone. They're sustained by community. In this next segment, we're going to return to voices we've already heard. Deon from Women with a Vision, Jan from Black Women for Wellness, and Kenda from Birth and Color. They're also joined by Lakeisha Camise, Policy Director of Black Women for Wellness. Together, they remind us that resistance is a team effort. They talk about what it means to prepare our communities, to connect with real accomplices, to take ownership of our future, and to remember that none of us are powerless when we move together. Take a listen of their reflections.
As a person who was born and raised in New Orleans, what makes my life possible is being in New Orleans. We celebrate everything: food, dance, music, food, dance, music. And so even when my culture in New Orleans, that even the worst things, we have to find time for celebration. We have to find time to love on each other, be with each other. And in this moment, I think that the ways that Black people are going to survive is by finding each other. And at Women with a Vision, and truly for my own personal reasons, I don't believe in allyship. Allyship has failed us multiple times, and it continues to fail us. Even in the Democratic Party, in this moment, we see this week they have failed us yet again. And so when I say I don't believe in allyship, it's because our movements and in our lives, it requires us to be accomplices to liberation and justice. An accomplice shows up in a different way than ally. Allyship allows you to come when you want to visit if you choose to. Accomplishment requires work, relationship, and understanding of each other in order to move forward. It means we're fighting together at all times. Even when we're not together, we're on the same page. And that's what real revolution is about, and that is what we need in this moment.
I think that when I say our communities right now, I'm talking about Black communities. And we need to be prepared to be of mutual aid and assistance to each other. We need to be prepared for the worst, for the unspeakable and the unknown. And we have this saying at Black Women of Wellness, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Ooh, so that's what we need to be, prepared for the worst. I actually have 4 things that I tell people right now. So thing 1, and I got this at Black Feminist Futures Conference, right? So thing 1 is find your people, find your family, your external family, your internal family, but people who you check on every day and who check on you every day, because you don't want to disappear without somebody knowing, right? And then the next thing that I got is join an organization. You can join any of our organizations. We all have volunteer space or member space or something, and then hold us accountable to the values that made you join and the values that we, profess that we hold, right? So hold us accountable, but join. Don't do it from a distance. Do it from right inside up under us, like that. So those are 2 things that I got from that conference. The third is be inclusive. Too many of us live in silos, and right now, folks are being forced to think outside of their silos, right? So the reproductive justice folks gonna have to talk to the food injustice folks, gonna have to talk to the environmental justice folks, gonna have to talk to the criminal justice folks, all of that. So we have to get outside of our silo and figure out how we join, support, ally, partner, whatever. And then the last one, which I know might be a little controversial, rest is not a liberation tool. It is not. Yes, people have to rest. Yes, people have to find balance. But some people live there. You cannot live in the rest. You cannot live in the find joy and laughter, because we have real serious work to do. So my mom used to call me up and she used to say, business of importance, when she wanted me to call her back immediately. So right now, it's business of importance that we are about. So even though we have to balance out that rest, joy, love, laughter, etc., we got to be about that business of importance, which is saving our futures.
I believe that our communities need to be preparing for it to look like it did back in our ancestors' days. And like, what does it look like for us to actually unite and come up with a real plan, a real solution to combat what the administration is actually doing. We've seen where they've taken away our history, or they're attempting to, and it's just a big racism fight that people aren't really acknowledging, and I think that's what we need to be prepared for. And then also when you look at what the big bill did, what does this look like for states to come up with plans for themselves without relying on the federal government? And I think that's where the community also needs to come together, and we can figure out how do we make sure that our communities are protected from whatever they are actually doing.
I think that I want people to understand more than anything is that you are not powerless. I know that I tell people the joke that around February, I started answering my Zoom calls with, we're about 10 years, 7 months into this administration, because there was so many executive orders coming out. There was so much change. It felt like all of our rights were being rolled back and still being rolled back. And it just happened, what they say, everywhere, everything, all at once. So it can seem overwhelming, but know that that's the idea. That's the tactic. They want to get you off center. They want to deregulate you in your nervous system, and to make you think that it's all happening. You have no idea how to fix it. It's 12,000 different things. But one of the best things that I think that we did collectively in our communities is that we went on a little bit of a social media fast, and then was more intentional about what kind of media you consume and the volume in which you consume. You can't read every single article. You can't get every single alert. You can't, unfortunately, tap into some of the mainstream media. So you have to be strategic and make sure that you are seeking out those truth tellers that are going to give you that factual information that is pertinent to your community. And make sure that you are, say you take about 3 topics, you have another counterpart take 3 topics, and that way you focus in on those areas. And it's just like they say, biting and, how do you eat elephant? One bite at a time. So you just take those small bits, you do those things, you still keep moving forward and keep that momentum. Black Women for Wellness, we're still out there in those public policy streets. We're still lobbying. We still are passing bills, getting bills passed. So we're still fighting for community and being in community. So we're still standing in solidarity with those who have been directly attacked by this government. So just knowing the power that you have, knowing that you're not alone, and making sure that you're staying in community. Of course, people talk about self-care, but part of that self-care is being in that collective of those people that are like-minded and see what's going on and can help fight that good fight.
Listening to these reflections, I'm reminded that community isn't just where we find support, it's where we build strategy. Community is the heartbeat of reproductive justice. It's how we weather the storm, and it's how we build what comes next together. As we close this part of the conversation, we turn to what sustains that heartbeat, the vision and the hope that carries us forward. Throughout this episode, we have heard from leaders across our movement about what it means to understand, to stay grounded, and to move together as a community. As we close, I want to bring us back to something that's always been at the heart of reproductive justice: joy. In this final segment, we'll hear once more from Dázon, Sharice, and Kenda. We'll be joined by Dorothy Roberts, scholar, author, activist, and one of the summit keynote speakers who needs no introduction. Together, they'll show us joy is both the fuel and the future of our movement. Here's what they had to say.
My people bring me joy every single day, whether it is the women that we meet on a regular basis who have been diagnosed with HIV or who have survived what most of us would consider life-ending traumas, and not only have survived that, but through their resilience and their resistance have stepped into the movement to be a part of the change. Seeing that happens brings me joy on a regular. Being with family always brings me joy because we're intentional about loving each other. We're intentional about catching each other. And I do mean I have an immediate family that is all of that. And beyond that, my extended family brings me joy. I mean, have you met Loretta Ross? That's my bestie. We fight and we laugh, we love, we hug, and we stop hanging out together sometimes just so that we can be there for each other. But I think most importantly, what brings me joy is reminding how much love I have and how much love I have to give. And that in and of itself, if that doesn't bring you joy, I don't know what else you can, because there's no other greater energy. There's no other more universal opportunity for us to figure out why it is we're doing this work, how we want to do this work, with whom we want to do this work, and how much fun we want to make sure we bring into this work. Because now that I mentioned her, I'm actually going to quote her, and I think she was quoting someone else who said, fighting hate should be fun. So we should find joy in making sure that the work we're doing, the battles we're waging, and the wars we're trying to win are actually because joy is our North Star. Freedom, liberation, All the things that make me smile about this movement are what's possible for this movement. And so staying in the possible brings me joy.
Man, I am finding joy in my team. For the very first time in almost 14 years of us doing this work, do I feel like I have gotten this beautiful combination of beautiful talent, people who not only have experience in organizing, experience in human rights, experience in public health, experience in reproductive and sexual justice in some ways, even if, it's not innate to, if they couldn't articulate what it was. I think that for the first time, I feel like we have a dope synergy at Sister Reach to advance the work, where I feel like I can take a step back finally, where I feel like I can take a breath, I can get a little rest, knowing that I don't have to necessarily hold our organization together, but I can stand kind of as a fresh wind and push and propel my people forward for the very first time. So I am thankful for an amazing team, and that is bringing me joy.
I think my children bring me joy. When they actually get to be a part of the work, or when people ask them questions and they know the answers, and then other people want to debate and they call me and say, Mom, can you tell this person this question, like answer this for them? And then I answer, and they're like, do you think my mom does this work and I don't know what's actually going on in the world? And I think that's what brings me joy, because I've set the foundation for them. So even as I grew up, right, I have fewer rights than what my grandparents and them had at that time, when you think about it. And so if they ever have to fight for something, hopefully they won't. They have the tools to continue to fight for themselves.
Despite these very alarming and even depressing times, what brings me joy and gives me the hope to continue struggling against injustice is coming together with other activists who share my values, who share my vision, who share my hope, and celebrating the victories that we do have and celebrating our vision for a better world and our belief, our commitment that we can build a better world.
Joy as a strategy, joy as power, joy as proof that we are still here. Listening to these voices, I'm reminded that our joy isn't naive. It's revolutionary. It's the same joy our ancestors carried through struggle. The joy that says we're still worthy of laughter, still deserving of love, still imagining what freedom feels like. Joy is how we survive. Joy is how we lead. And joy is how we win. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Outspoken with Regina. The summit speaks Black women leading with joy, policy, and power. The voices we heard today remind us that reproductive justice isn't just a framework. It's a practice. It's how we show up for ourselves, our families, our communities with both courage and care. If you're ready to take that next step in that practice, visit blackrj.org, where you can download the newly added section of our Reproductive Justice Community Guide, Staying Safe While Showing Up, a Personal Security Planner. It's designed to help you create your own safety and care plan for community action. The link is on the screen now. You can also stay connected to this work by following In Our Own Voice, National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda across all platforms at Black Women's RJ. Follow us for updates, resources, and more ways to get involved. To everyone who joined us at the 2025 Reproductive Summit, and to all those leading this work in your community, may we continue to lead with joy, organize with power, and live out the promise of reproductive justice in action. Until next time, I'm Dr. Regina Davis Moss. Stay rooted, bold, and most important, stay